That makes you 38. Must have fought in Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
What was it like?
It's gross.
A long-running sitcom that has remained one of the most beloved and funniest comedies of its time.
How can you go back to a room full of people that think you're a total idiot? I mean, how do you do it, Cliff?
It's a series named after a salutation, an expression of gratitude, a toast, and in this case, a bar in Boston. It's a place where everybody knows your name. Unfortunately, that includes Cliff Claven.
Huh?
Cheers.
We both waste all our time sitting on our cans in this beer hall doing nothing but watching TV and gossiping like a couple of old ladies. Plus, everyone thinks we're doofuses.
Cheers is a sitcom that premiered on NBC in 1982 and ran for 11 seasons, which is an achievement, but an even bigger achievement, it remained funny and popular throughout its run.
Very sensitive, intimate, sometimes shocking information nobody should be privy to. For example, take a look at this guy.
Cheers begins as a comedy set almost exclusively in a downstairs bar in Boston, where a group of regulars drink, chat, play games, and prank each other. It can be a goofy show, a sweet comedy, a farce, a romantic comedy, and a masterclass in insult comedy.
Don't mind Sam, he's a little depressed. This is the year his age caught up with his IQ.
It was also a smart show, not just having verbose characters quoting from literature and using longer words to insinuate a lack of intelligence in any other character, but because it wasn't always going for the easiest low-ball gag. But sure, they did that too.
Then it'll be even funnier.
But it was a sitcom that was also part soap opera, had dialogue influenced by screwball comedies, and was a show that mixed fast-paced gags with ones with a slow build-up.
Probably that warm spirit, the camaraderie, stuff like that. Yeah, he stole all my money.
The owner of Cheers is Sam Malone, a former baseball star and a recovering alcoholic, and he makes the mistake of hiring a well-educated but well-unemployed grad student, Diane Chambers, who he would quickly fall in love with, despite the massive gap in their intellect, or more accurately, their intellectual pretensions.
Tell me in one sentence what you perceive to be your problem right now.
You won't leave.
Let's come back to that.
The bar's regulars lament their lives outside of the bar while living vicariously through the ups and downs of Sam and Diane's relationship.
What do you think they're doing in there if they're not fighting?
Which blossoms, flatlines,
Get the hell out of here.
gets hot and heavy, and then cools like hot lava in the Arctic Circle. Well, look, how I assume lava goes in the Arctic Circle. I mean, I haven't actually been there and witnessed the cooling effect of lava in a cold climate. I'm just saying, it's a saying.
Yeah, whoa, come on, Cliff, that's enough.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah.
Sam had employees, the acid-tongued Carla, and the good-natured but not particularly bright bartender, Coach.
Look at you, you're tall, you're handsome, you got a great smile. Show me your smile. I'll be damned, who the hell was I thinking of?
Like any bar, Cheers had its regulars, Norm, and of course, Cliff Claven. Later on, we'd be introduced to Frasier, Rebecca, Woody, and Lilith.
She's just a hard-working waitress.
Diane got a job as a waitress somewhere?
The show's first 5 seasons followed the ups and downs of Sam and Diane's relationship, as well as looks at the lives of the other characters. Later on, with new cast members, some dynamics changed over time, where Cheers became a sort of family for these people.
I couldn't possibly place a monetary value on something so personal to me.
I'd give you $1,000 for it.
Make the check out to Diane Chambers.
Sam Malone is a recovering alcoholic who is still a famous former relief pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. He's an inveterate womanizer and treats his '64 Corvette better than anything other than his hair.
Not one split end. What is this guy's secret?
He was really proud of his hair.
Are you touching it during the critical drying stage?
What do you think I am, a rookie?
Sam regales his bar's patrons with wild stories of his sex life and his baseball days. Sam generally has a big heart, but he can also be more than a little selfish.
The more she likes me, the more she trusts me. The more she trusts me, the closer I get to snagging that car.
And not the brightest spark. His baseball fame is a big part of his charm, but at the same time his heavy drinking had ended his first marriage and his sporting career.
Wait a second, let me get a pencil. I wanna write this down. Okay.
Diane Chambers was a well-educated grad student who was jilted by her lover and reluctantly accepted a job as a waitress in Cheers.
You're a regular no coward with a liquor license.
I don't get it.
Diane at first tried to make her new circumstance work as a life experience that would help her in her writing.
This is Sam, who wouldn't think of saying anything embarrassing in front of my mother, so he wisely says nothing at all.
But truth be told, Diane is pompous, pretentious, and prone to using flowery and verbose language in order to describe any given situation.
I hate you.
Are you as turned on as I am?
More.
Diane and Sam's relationship can be characterized as a love-hate relationship, where they love to hate each other, then hate to love each other, then love to love each other, and then if that wasn't clear enough, then you clearly aren't Diane Chambers.
Diane and I would like you to celebrate with us by toasting our nuptials.
Ouch.
No, it's...
Carla Tortelli was Cheers' resident waitress. Carla is a deeply superstitious single mother with 4 children, most of whom are troublemakers.
Think of my kids. If I didn't have this job, I'd have to stay home with them.
Carla would do anything for Sam, but she's happy to have affairs with whoever, despite her 5 kids. Carla has a sharp tongue which she uses to spit venom at Diane and Cliff in particular.
Damn, I thought Claven was up on the ledge.
In trying to raise 6 kids, Carla sometimes finds it hard to get by on a waitress salary.
Give me some money, it's for a good cause.
What cause?
Because I said.
But Sam is rarely in a position to help Carla with her 7 kids.
Now may I please have my pants back?
Later on, a marriage to hockey player Eddie Lebec ends suddenly and she becomes a widow with 8 kids.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Rhea Perlman had previously had a recurring role on Taxi, where she played against her real-life partner, Danny DeVito.
You mean he didn't breastfeed the other 4?
Nah, they went right to raw meat.
Coach Ernie Pantuso was a former baseball coach and now widowed. He works as a bartender with Sam, somebody he'd known for years.
Cheers. Yeah, just a sec. Is there an Ernie Pantuso here?
That's you, Coach.
Speaking.
Coach is big-hearted, but honestly dimmer than a light switch attached to a dimmer switch set to low, but even dimmer since the bulb needs replacing. The sweetest character at the place, he was played by Nicholas Colasanto, who'd been acting for years and had also become a prolific director of episodic television.
The salesman said satisfaction guaranteed.
Or?
Now that would have been a good question.
He stepped in at the last minute after another actor dropped out. Colasanto had long-standing health issues, which led to him passing away during the show's 3rd season.
Sing it, Sam.
Norm Peterson was the guy who sat on the same stool every day.
Hey! What are you up to, Norm?
My ideal weight if I were 11 feet tall.
He began the series as an accountant, found himself out of work for long spells, became a house painter for a time before just being that guy.
I remember my dad didn't want me to get serious with Vera. He'd heard that she had loose morals.
You're kidding.
Actually got the story wrong. Turns out she had loose molars.
Norm is that person who doesn't particularly want much out of life other than to drink beer, eat unhealthy food, and hope that Cliff has laryngitis that day.
And I could do something about that. Or I could sit right here and feel sorry for myself and nurse this beer all day. And since I'm already here...
He's married to Vera, a formidable woman who we'll mainly only hear about. George Wendt was a familiar face on television and movies, but since the days of Cheers, probably hates walking into any room with more than 3 people in it.
Diana. Norm!
Even more legendary than Norm is his bar tab, which nobody ever seems quite able to convince him to settle.
Look at that, we go all the way back to when we didn't even know your name. Skinny guy at the end of the bar.
Cliff Claven worked for the United States Postal Service. Sorry, that should read, was employed by the United States Postal Service.
Yeah, this is a uniform that demands respect.
Cliff was somebody who fancied himself as an authority on any subject.
Yes, but past that and the Latin declension, and my point is still moot.
Whether, of course, it was relevant to the current topic of conversation was unimportant.
There's a gentleman over here that thinks you know absolutely nothing about photosynthesis. I'll straighten him out.
Cliff has an unhealthy relationship with his mother and at times is shown to be 2 steps away from becoming a stalker.
Okay, Mr. Claven, remember the rules. You have to keep at least 50 feet from Mr. Fogarty at all times.
John Ratzenberger had unsuccessfully auditioned for Norm, but at his audition asked the producers if they'd found someone to play the bar blowhard, the know-all who wants you to know that he knows everything.
Those people have never been in my kitchen.
Well, I'm sure they haven't, but obviously that's not what we were going for when we wrote up that clue.
Obvious to who?
There originally was no such character, but one was quickly created for Ratzenberger, who appeared as a recurring character in about half of the 1st season episodes before becoming a series regular in the 2nd season. And for no other reason that it amuses me on a cold, wet morning, Ratzenberger spent many years working in the UK, where he often appeared playing small roles in major films shot in Britain.
Taking you to a height of ecstasy you never dreamed possible.
Yeah, I could go for that.
Sam and Diane's relationship had many ups and downs, but it was during a down point that Diane needed professional help. And at the same time, Sam could also benefit from talking to somebody.
Tell him to drop by. I'll
Try to fit him in between dames.
Why don't you say hello to him right now?
Hello, Sam.
And that's how psychiatrist Dr. Frasier Crane was introduced. At first he was Diane's therapist before they became involved.
I think you'll find that once you've been a patient of mine, I'm always there when you... Oh, great. I'll bet this is important.
Frasier was well educated. And boy, did he not let you forget that. He was the sort of person you'd expect Diane thought that she wanted. Highly educated, cultured, rich.
Especially that first night when we made such buffoons of ourselves.
We, Frasier?
All right, you.
When he was jilted by Diane at the end of the third season, Frasier took it badly and became a barfly, just one of the gang, but never really becoming one of the gang since he was highfalutin, snooty, and just a bit much.
Karen, I hope you're doing this for the money, because this certainly won't square things between you and your father.
Frasier would become a regular by the show's fifth season, where he would embark on a restrained yet fiery relationship and later marriage to Lilith. Kelsey Grammer would play Frasier Crane as a pathetic sad sack, a dejected drunkard, a man happy to show off his happiness, and somebody worn down by marriage and fatherhood. And then after Cheers, played the character for another 11 years in a spin-off, which years later would have its own spin-off. Frasier Crane, the residual that keeps on giving.
I kiss only as a prelude to passion.
Well, we've been warned.
Dr. Lilith Sternen was an austere research psychiatrist who, underneath the pale exterior, was someone ready-made for jokes about her being a robot or a vampire or an alien.
You're making a big fool of yourself.
Bebe Neuwirth was a stage actor and dancer who played a character with such restrained demeanour that the few times where Lilith was uncaged were scary.
If you ever open that gateway to hell you call a mouth in my direction again, I'll snap off your extremities like dead branches and feed them to you at gunpoint.
Woody Boyd came to work for Cheers after Coach's passing. He was from Hanover, Indiana, where the naive simpleton farm boy character finding his place in the big city was a central part to Woody's character.
Woody, would you add up these receipts for me, please?
Sure. There's 8 of them.
Woody was the smartest person in the room when extrapolated from data taken from tests conducted in laboratory conditions after all the researchers had gone to lunch. Even after several years in Boston, Woody would retain that naivete and, let's be honest, the good-natured dim-wittedness that defined his character.
If you leave right away, you can catch the corn parade. Now, that's kind of like the rose parade, but instead of using flowers for the float,
They use can.
you've heard of it.
When looking for a character to replace Coach, the producers wanted someone younger, but still somebody who was slow on the uptake, and preferably from a rural background.
The voters of Boston are sheep.
Well, I thought that was just a Hanover thing.
The new character was named Woody even before Woody Harrelson had auditioned. And look, as we've alluded to in other videos, we just have to reiterate, Woody Harrelson did not, repeat, not sing the theme tune that introduced each episode of Cheers.
I was just trying to figure out where I knew Kelly's aunt from, and it finally came to me.
Of course it came to you. You caught me making love to her on the floor of my office.
I met her at the wedding. Caught you what?
For a time, Woody would try his hand at acting in small plays.
Well, actually, Carla, as a student of the theater, I have to correct you. What you were doing there is not called acting, it's called improvising.
Shut up, Woody.
Now, that would be directing.
Sam and Diane's relationship reached a crescendo at the end of the 5th season where they were about to get married, and then Diane decided to pursue her career. Shelley Long and Ted Danson had burgeoning movie careers in the latter part of the 80s, and Long decided she wanted to concentrate on films. Likewise, Diane would leave Cheers in order to become a writer.
Have a good life.
Sam sold the bar to some big corporation, bought a boat. He's sailing around the world with it.
Except the boat quickly sank. Sam returned to Cheers under its new management and asked the bar's new manager for a job as a bartender.
Because I just wanted to remember the exact moment I met the biggest jerk on earth.
Rebecca Howe was an ambitious woman trying to work her way up the corporate ladder, or marry a rich guy, whichever was quickest. She's fawning towards people she thinks can help her career, and looks down on pretty much anyone else.
Well, then there's only one thing left to say. Oh, my God.
She's also deeply vulnerable. Underneath that hard-nosed businesswoman veneer, that facade can fall apart with predictable and hilarious results.
You think you can handle an executive position with my marketing team?
Yes, sir.
Think you can start Monday?
Yes, sir!
FBI, Mr. Anwalt, you're under arrest.
Rebecca would pine for executive Evan Drake and then for businessman Robin Colcourt, who would eventually date Rebecca, though her dreams were smashed when he was arrested and sent to jail. Sam would mount a campaign to, well, mount Rebecca, which goes nowhere for a long time until the pair decide that since they both want to have children and neither is likely to have a long-term relationship soon, that they should have a child together.
Still want to be a mommy?
You still want to be a daddy?
I do if you do.
I do.
Kirstie Alley had appeared on a few television series as a guest, made an impressive showing in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, but declined to continue in the Star Trek films. She'd had a lead role in the short-lived series Masquerade and the major miniseries North and South.
I have no future, and I'm a totally hopeless failure.
Yeah, try it with beer nuts.
With Cheers, Alley showed her comedic chops, which means she can tell a joke, not whatever you thought that meant, you weirdo.
My lust controls me, and that's why I'm here.
So you like Chinese food?
The story of where Cheers came from could start anywhere in the new wave of sitcoms that hit in the 70s, but a good enough jumping off point was the comedy series Taxi, a workplace comedy about, funnily enough, people who worked for a taxi cab company. Taxi ran for 5 seasons and starred Judd Hirsch, Tony Danza, Marilu Henner, Danny DeVito, Christopher Lloyd, Andy Kaufman, and was a world away from the saccharine sitcoms of the 60s. In Taxi, people had dreams of a better life, but those dreams were frustratingly just out of reach.
Because if this is part of some involved scheme to get me back in bed with you, you will be very disappointed.
Yeah, but you'll enjoy yourself.
Writers Glen and Les Charles had made their first sale with a script for an episode of MASH, and would write for many classic 70s sitcoms before ending up as producers on the show Taxi for its first few seasons. James Burrows was a television director who specialised in sitcoms and had directed most episodes of Taxi. They would band together as Charles Burrows Charles in order to strike out on their own, and soon they had a deal to make 2 pilots for NBC, though in the end they would only end up working on the show set in a bar that would be called Cheers. Didn't see that one coming.
You're the innocent farm boy telling the big city slickers to clean up the barn and all that farm crap.
Well, no, it's not crap. If you don't clean up the barn, you get rats.
One inspiration for Cheers was British sitcom classic Fawlty Towers. The original idea for Cheers would be to set the new show in a hotel, and that would coalesce into setting it in a bar. They wanted a setting that would require fewer sets, as, like Taxi and MASH before them, they would prefer to shoot the new show on film rather than videotape. They reasoned fewer locations would be much more manageable. Using a bar as a setting offered a lot of scope for people coming and going. You didn't have to spend 10 minutes explaining why somebody was there. The crew and passengers of the SS Minnow are stuck on an island that's been visited by more people than Don Corleone on his daughter's wedding day, yet within 25 minutes they've been and gone without taking anybody back with them. In a bar, hey, it's a bar.
What happens to old dead skin?
Apparently it sits on bar stools and drinks beer all day.
The bar in the series was located underneath an upscale seafood restaurant, Melville's. Restaurant patrons could enjoy a drink at Cheers before heading upstairs to their meal, or they could just stay and listen to Cliff Claven pontificate.
Well, you're ashamed of your best friend, huh? Afraid I'm gonna embarrass you? Afraid I'm gonna be a big bore?
Thanks for understanding, Cliff.
Oh, all right.
The original pilot script concentrated on the bar's employees, with the bar's regulars being added later. As for the location of the bar, well, New York had been done to death, and Boston seemed like the most logical choice. It was a sports-loving town with major teams in every American sport. It had a mix of working class and old money, and people with that distinctive accent, who would just randomly yell at you out their car window for no reason as they sped past.
Cheers.
Coach, that ringing is in your head.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The Charles brothers and Burrows wanted Cheers to be a brighter series than Taxi, a little more optimistic, and so Cheers wasn't a dingy dive bar filled with people actively drinking themselves to death. To balance the idea of a bar being filled with dipsomaniacs, boozers, lushers and the like, the lead character of Cheers would himself be a recovering alcoholic, and we would rarely see characters falling down drunk. Falling down stupid, well, that was another matter entirely.
When I was tempted to have a drink, sometimes I'd look at the bottle cap, and it would stop.
Sam was originally envisaged as an ex-footballer, along the lines of actual ex-footballer Fred Dryer, who was one of the final candidates for the show's male lead. Dryer didn't get the job, but would appear occasionally as a friend of Sam's before later landing his own series, Hunter, a TV-friendly understudy for Dirty Harry.
So you gotta sit behind this desk.
you'll have to wear pants. It's my little joke on the audience.
Ted Danson, who was a trained actor rather than an athlete, seemed to look a lot more like a baseball player. After he was cast, he and Nick Colasanto were sent to bartending school, which was a nice touch because, if the show didn't make it, then at least they'd have a skill to fall back on. Norm Peterson was based on a real bar patron that the Charles brothers had remembered, who would show up to a bar after work, talk about having one drink, and then they would be there for the rest of the night. The rest of the characters were composites and archetypes. The character of Coach in particular had a basis in several well-known baseball identities.
Yeah, what's the name of that new Australian film? Supposed to be so good.
No Australian films. I hate subtitles.
The casting process was, like a tired sloth with a gammy leg, leisurely. A Writers' Guild strike in 1981 meant producers had the time to see everybody who remotely fit their character profiles. In general, they had preferred relatively unknown actors, as well as a few people they'd known from Taxi. Rhea Perlman was one of their first choices. George Wendt was also wanted, but he had a commitment to another project if that had gone ahead. Shelley Long was an in-demand actress at the time who was suggested to producers, but she was not keen on reading for the role. Though eventually she was put together with Ted Danson for a reading, and their on-screen chemistry was by far the best of the 3 pairings of leads that had made it through the drawn-out casting process.
How do you think it feels to be attracted to someone who makes you sick?
The network wasn't so sure about Danson, but it was the Charles brothers and Burrows who insisted that he was the best for the role. The bar used for the exteriors was the Bull and Finch in Boston. I wonder, on any given day, how many times an arsehole in a rusty yellow Camaro with no exhaust would race past the bar while yelling out the window, "Cheers rocks." Gee, I miss that car.
They got married over there, had their first fight up by the piano. She caught him in the pool room with a woman, shot him dead in the alley.
The interior set was designed by Richard Silbert to the specifications of the producers. It was a nice place where you could take your favourite aunt on her birthday, rather than the place where your aunt hooked up with sailors.
Where everybody knows your name.
The theme song was written by Judy Hart-Angelo and Gary Portnoy. They'd offered the producers several songs, but one in particular stood out, Where Everybody Knows Your Name, except it had comedy lyrics. A new verse with more sentimental lyrics was written, and that became the theme song to Cheers, along with an instrumental version at the end.
Beer and pretzels, that's our game. C-H-E-R-S. You don't come here, that's a shame. C-H-E-R-S.
Sorry to harp on about this, but boy does Gary Portnoy's vocal sound like Woody Harrelson. I know Harrelson wasn't involved with the series at the start, but boy, just listen to this and tell me it's not just slightly possible.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got.
But back to reality, the song would be nominated for an Emmy, while Portnoy and Hart-Angelo would also write the themes for Punky Brewster and Mr. Belvedere. Cheers debuted on NBC in late September of 1982, and while reviews ran the gamut of solid to good, ratings ranged from poor to in the shitter. Taxi had moved to NBC for its 5th and final season, where it was paired with Cheers. Its competition was popular detective show Simon and Simon. And so the problem wasn't whether Cheers was good or not, but getting people to try Cheers at all.
Well, if you were so good, why aren't you still playing?
I developed an elbow problem. I bent it too much.
You were a drunk?
The original commitment from NBC had been for 13 episodes, eventually stretching out to a full season. Though with Cheers' poor ratings, a renewal would be a miracle. But it was renewed, since NBC didn't actually have a suitable replacement ready to go. When NBC's rivals screened reruns, people tuned in to Cheers, and then the show started winning Emmys.
Yeah, that might help a little bit.
It wouldn't be until the show's 3rd season, when NBC's entire Thursday night lineup became a juggernaut, that Cheers was finally considered a hit, and pretty much stayed that way for the rest of its run.
Carla, I'm writing during the odd moments of the job, much as Jack London did. Oh, is he a bad waitress too?
The first season of Cheers began with Diane starting work at the bar, where she did not patronize the people around her. Well, not deliberately, but at times she tried to educate them and enlighten them. Sam and Diane danced around the idea of getting together.
I'm rubber and you're glue. Everything you say bounces off me and sticks to you. You love me, you love me, you love me.
I do not.
Diane, for her part, looked down her nose at Sam and at his womanizing ways, and it was at the end of the first season that they finally became a couple.
Now I'm gonna nibble on your ear.
Don't tell me you're going to nibble on me.
The second season saw the show building on its strengths, where it delved into the lives of the bar's regulars and its staff.
So how's life treating you there, Norm?
Same.
Oh, that's too bad.
Though it still mainly revolved around Sam and Diane's fractious relationship. Carla has a near-identical sister who's an even bigger man-eater. Coach returns to coaching, but at this time, Norm and Cliff are still pretty much side characters.
You're not letting go!
You're squeezing harder.
That's because you're not letting go.
Sam and Diane would break up at the end of the season.
Bye.
At the time, Cheers had a few continuing plot threads, which was a relatively new thing for a sitcom.
You want to make love?
No, I always take a nap with a blonde in the afternoon.
Sitcoms were mainly offered as shows that viewers could dip in and out of. Major character development and relationship changes, for the most part, would happen on a season-by-season basis.
And Diane naturally thinks that Sam is the torchbearer in this situation.
Awful lot's been happening down at Cheers. Let me just grab a beer.
Cheers would have several multiple-part stories, which often featured some of the most imaginative recaps of the 1980s.
While he was here, this Semenko fella saw Diane and he got an idea. He decided to paint a picture.
When the show returned for season 3, Diane had had a breakdown and started to see her therapist, Dr. Frasier Crane. Sam had begun drinking again. Diane would return to work at Cheers as part of her therapy, though here it's revealed that she's now dating Frasier Crane.
Your boyfriend stopped by the other night. What's his name?
You know very well it's Frasier.
Frasier, right. Damn it, boy. That's an easy name to forget.
Norm would get a new job. Basically, he had to fire other employees, and he decided that he needed to do that on home soil.
I don't think so, Billy. Why not? Because you're fired.
Carla gets even with one of her teachers. Frasier introduced Diane to his mother.
Now listen to me. I have a gun. I know how to use it.
This season would see Sam and Diane snipe at each other, while Diane accompanied Frasier on a European tour that would end with them getting engaged. Sam, of course, hopped on a plane to try and stop the wedding in a cliffhanger ending. Though why you'd want to hang off Cliff, I have no idea. Both Rhea Perlman and Shelley Long were pregnant, with Carla's pregnancy written into the script. Long's pregnancy was hidden and episodes were filmed out of broadcast order.
Okay, now, this Rubens guy. Is this the same guy that invented that sandwich?
Nicholas Colasanto died in late 1984, but with some editing, Coach was able to appear up until the season finale. Producers had originally wanted John Lithgow for the part of Frasier, but he declined the offer. Meanwhile, Kelsey Grammer was to make his name as Dr. Frasier Crane. Frasier, who would become a beloved character, was initially a character hated by many viewers, as he was considered the main reason that Sam and Diane were apart.
Anyone even uses the words Diane Chambers. I will have no other choice but to kill that person.
Season 4 began with an angry Frasier turning up to confront Sam after Diane had dumped him.
Diane dancing on tabletop? You mean the Diane?
Diane had gone on a decadent spree and had been hiding out in a convent.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, Sam.
Frasier would become an embittered regular of the bar, while Woody is offered a job as a bartender, where he will tell stories about his hometown in Indiana.
At the end, he was just praying to die. Well, eat up, everybody.
In trying to get over Diane, Frasier had a date with a colleague, Dr. Lilith Sternin, which bombed terribly, and he instead proposed to Candy.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I do.
Right phrase, wrong wedding.
Much to Diane's distress, the season would end with Sam dating a local councilwoman, Janet. That's Janet, not Janeway.
I was curious about that myself.
The finale ended with Sam making a phone call to either Janet or Diane, and viewers would have to wait until the next season to learn whose number he had dialed.
Oh, what the hell? Will you marry me?
Who did Sam call? Didn't really have the same zing as Who Shot JR, but for Cheers fans, the answer was just as important.
Will you marry me?
In season 5, we would learn that Diane had turned Sam down on the phone and then again on a sailboat. We would finally meet Ma Claven.
This is the odor I'm always washing out of your shirts.
Carla would buy a house that's possibly haunted.
Apparently the house is built directly over the graveyard of a 17th century prison.
Everybody spends Thanksgiving together.
Kiss your butt. Goodbye!
Sam and Diane would eventually renew their relationship and by the end of the season would begin planning a wedding, where they also bought a house together, which they had to quickly sell back to the previous owners since Diane felt bad about depriving the family of their memories of the house.
satisfaction, and joy.
Point well taken.
This intellectual stuff's getting me all hot.
Frasier renewed his relationship with Lilith and they would move in together.
If you want to have an altercation, you will have to...
Shelley Long had decided that she was leaving the show after her initial 5-year contract ended, and so Diane was written out after she was offered the chance to have her book published.
Do you agree that we shouldn't get married?
I do.
There were many pundits at the time who assumed that Shelley Long's departure would lead to Cheers quickly petering out. But instead, the opposite happened.
Sam's still on the bar. He wasn't out circumnavigating the globe. Yonder sat Diane with a book. Norm and Cliff were permanent fixtures in this place. God, how I miss those hail fellows well met.
When the show returned for season 6, Sam had sold the bar and bought a boat, and after that sank, I mean the boat, not the bar, he needed a job.
Miss Chambers went off to write her book. Only that didn't work out. Last we heard, she was out in Hollywood trying to write for TV.
The bar's new manager, Rebecca, was a totally different person from Diane, and she was Sam's boss, which resurrected an idea from the early days of Cheers. When looking for a replacement for Diane, the producers wanted somebody to evoke the style of Joan Collins from Dynasty. That's no, I can't do it. I'm not American. Dynasty.
You know that story about my apartment being robbed? I made that all up.
No!
Kirstie Alley was cast as Rebecca Howe, a hard-nosed and ambitious woman who can't stand Sam.
Well, I guess I just don't find you as irresistible as some do. You, for instance.
She was meant to be an antagonist, but quickly became one of the lovable losers in the bar. Rebecca's veneer of toughness would evaporate into a puddle at the very first sign of trouble.
I thought he really liked me.
Kirstie Alley had absolutely no problem showing Rebecca at her lowest ebb every second week. We see her absolutely lowest ebb. There is no ebb lower, no second lowest ebb, only the lowest of low ebbs. Ebb.
Acid and fire are no match for Miracle Buff, unlike human skin.
While Sam has to get used to not being the boss, Rebecca is infatuated with businessman Evan Drake and obsessed with humiliating herself in order to get close to him.
He said that every time he sees you, you do something more bizarre than the time before.
What did you say?
Well, honey, I had to agree.
Sam still wanted to bed Rebecca, he's Sam, but he wouldn't fall for her, at least not yet. At times he has the chance to bed Rebecca when she's at one of her very many low ebbs. He doesn't follow through since he feels so sorry for her.
Check your bra.
How did you do that?
Rhea Perlman was again pregnant this season, with Carla's list of potential alibis also increasing. This season she'd also marry hockey player Eddie LeBecq. Frasier and Lilith's relationship, now a marriage, would also become a big part of the show. In order to spite Frasier, Lilith won a date with Sam in a charity auction.
Buenas noches, amigos.
In the 7th season, the show's popularity continued. Norm tried to build a painting business, while Cliff began dating a colleague from the post office, who of course had to quickly run off to Canada. Woody also began dating rich but dim, but nice but dim, Kelly.
Now I understand. It's like when Daddy wanted to buy Shell Oil and couldn't.
The 8th season saw Carla become a widow when her husband, played by Jay Thomas, died on tour and then discovered he had another wife. Thomas had insulted Rhea Perlman on his radio show and he was quickly fired from his role. Cliff goes on Jeopardy!
I'm your champion. I answered all those questions. You saw me, America. Write in and tell them.
Come on, Wendt, if we sneak out right now, nobody will know we're with him.
The Cranes have a child, Frederick. And Norm has a stalker. Rebecca would turn her sights onto businessman Robin Colcord, while Sam would attempt to get together the finance to buy back Cheers.
I'm sorry. How are you all?
Not too bad, you know.
Yes, well, I'm off.
However, it's Robin Colcord's dodgy financial deals that give Sam the chance to finally buy back his bar.
I give you $1 and this bar's mine?
That's right, Mr. Malone. Nice catch.
I can't believe this. This bar's mine. All I have to do is give you $1. Oh, shoot.
Robin Colcord would go on the run, and Sam would console Rebecca the way he knows best.
Rebecca, I'm back. Oh, my God.
If you hadn't guessed it, it was sex. In season 9, Sam has the bar back running the way he likes it, but takes pity on Rebecca and gives her a job.
Could this all be a bad dream?
No, honey, this is the auto show.
Doing, I don't know, something.
Overseas
Robin Colcord had given himself up and gone to prison, with Rebecca telling him that she will wait for him.
I only loved you for your money.
Melville's new owner, John Allen Hill, and Sam have taken an instant dislike to each other, with their war of nerves continuing over the course of the year.
My hat check girl described your hair. She didn't do it justice.
Well, it's kind of a hobby.
Season 10, for me at least, seemed to be one of the funniest of the series. Sam and Rebecca decide to have a child together, even though they're not a couple. Woody and Kelly plan their wedding. Cliff tries his hand at stand-up comedy.
What's up with that?
Frasier learns his first wife is a mega successful kids entertainer, while Lilith learns that Frasier had a first wife.
You didn't tell me because you're a craven coward.
You know me so well, it's frightening.
Carla begins a torrid love affair with John Allen Hill.
I remember that surprise birthday party I organized for him, and you were the only one who showed up.
Yeah. Where were you anyway?
Cliff thinks he sold a joke to The Tonight Show, but it's Mark Claven who steals the show.
Now, Woody, I know this sounds like a meddlesome father-in-law giving advice, but it isn't. It's a threat.
The season finale is mainly set in a kitchen just before Woody and Kelly's wedding. The day is turning into a disaster. Woody can't keep his hands off his bride-to-be, Rebecca has made the kitchen staff quit, and the priest has died.
I trained as a physician. Believe me, he's dead. You don't make that mistake twice.
These 2 episodes are my personal favourites of the entire run. The 11th season of Cheers would become the last, leading up to the final episode that is still one of the most watched comedy finales of all time in the US.
But now look at it.
Oh, you ought to see the pool table. It actually fused to the floor.
Really? Cool.
Cheers was accidentally burnt down after a fire was started in the office.
My bar burns down. You're within 50 miles. It all fits.
Frasier thought he could stand Woody as a candidate for city council and get 10% of the vote without trying. But why stop there?
I'm firing my missiles too, all of them.
Who was that, Woody?
How the hell should I know? The phone rings, I answer.
Norm gets a job as a beer taster, which he quickly manages to lose. Frasier and Lilith split up. Rebecca and Frasier share an evening together, ruined first by impromptu guests and later by Lilith returning.
Rebecca? Am I the only one who feels awkward here?
Rebecca finally finds love with Don, a plumber. Sam seeks help for his sex addiction.
I don't want you to think that I'm, that I'm shallow, because, I have other interests too, like my hair.
And in order to console Carla after she slept with Paul, Sam reveals his true self. And then for the final episode, Diane returned.
Will this man stimulate your gift or be an anchor, pulling you to the bottom of the sea of mediocrity?
The feeling was that, after 11 seasons, Cheers had reached a natural conclusion, with Ted Danson in particular deciding he was done with Cheers one way or another. The network had asked the producers to consider making another season, but without Danson, which would be like making, Happy Days without Richie Cunningham. Oh wait, they did that. Or Laverne and Shirley without Shirley. Oh wait, they did that. Or the Dukes of Hazzards without the Dukes of Hazzards. Huh? Either way, no one was too interested in continuing with a Tedless Cheers.
Nobody. Okay.
In later seasons, Glen and Les Charles had pulled back from overseeing every aspect of the show, letting their producers run the series, though they would oversee the final batch of episodes and write the final show, which was at first a half hour, then NBC wanted it to be more of an event and it became an hour and finally a 90-minute finale. Even if 25 minutes is just the lad smoking cigars. Don had asked Rebecca to marry him. While she wants to say yes, she keeps turning him down.
Marry me?
Of course I won't.
Diane comes back to Cheers, where she and Sam pretend they're married before the pair eventually renew their relationship over dessert. Sam and Diane announce their engagement, which, like a stainless steel kite, doesn't go over very well.
You might want to take advantage of this delay to reconsider what you're doing.
They both have second thoughts, and Sam returns to Cheers alone, where he and the crew will share a cigar together and ponder the meaning of life and friendship and love. I'll just finish cutting up these onions in a moment, and Cheers ends with Sam walking to the back room in a reverse of the opening shot of the first episode. The final score: Rebecca has married Don and doesn't expect to be around much. Carla is now a bartender. Woody's about to start his job as city councilman, where he's also gotten Norm a job as an accountant. Cliff has bribed his way into a promotion. Frasier and Lilith seem to have worked things out, though we know how that will end. and Sam stays in the bar.
I'm the luckiest son of a bitch on earth.
There were other barflies who got gags here and there, but the one with the most lines by the end of the series was Paul Crapence, somebody who often felt left out of the shenanigans at Cheers, and somebody that even Cliff would shun.
What am I waiting for? I guess what I'm trying to say is, world.
Hi, Paul. This is Frasier's night. You mind?
In later seasons, Phil was always there with a zinger and was played by Phil Perlman,
Hey, Phil, zip it.
father of Rhea Perlman and prolific Cheers writer-producer Heidi Perlman.
Spent most of last night listening to Phil tell stories about how he worked on the Manhattan Project.
Try sleeping with that for 50 years.
Funnily enough, for a show about people who seem to never leave the bar, Cheers was almost exclusively set in the bar in its earliest years. There was the main bar set, the back room with the pool table, or Sam's office, all built on sound stages at Paramount. Episodes were shot with 3 film cameras in front of a live studio audience, which was convenient since trying to get audience reactions from a room full of corpses is A, frustrating, B, futile, and C, smelly.
Where'd he come up with these things?
Wherever possible, large gatherings would be held in Cheers, including numerous weddings and near weddings, as well as parties, more weddings, contests, weddings, bachelor parties, weddings, fights, people pulling a gun on Sam, and, of course, weddings.
Cliff, I'm even sorrier for what's about to happen. Huh? What do you mean?
As Cheers wore on, the scope of the series would slowly open up, with some footage shot on location in Boston. And there were also new sets: Diane's apartment, Rebecca's apartment, Frasier and Lilith's home, Cliff's bachelor pad, Carla's house, various offices, hotels and restaurants.
There's a little-known fact: 42% of all deaths in America are caused by accidents in the home.
So are you.
We'd never get a good look at Sam's place, though we did get a glance at Norm's place without ever once meeting Vera.
Hi, Sam. This is Vera Peterson again. Listen, ignore those messages. It turns out Norm was here in bed next to me the whole time.
Vera's voice was heard on occasion, and she was seen once, Sorta.
Everybody, this is Vera.
Though she's mostly talked about, with a few episodes revolving around Vera without ever showing her. In one episode, she may be having an affair with a neighbour. In another, she got a job at Melville's.
Vera. She's crossing over to the coffee machine.
As for other episodes and storylines worth mentioning, there was Cheers' ongoing rivalry with Gary's Old Town Tavern, whereby each bar would try to outprank each other, escalating past the point of humour into outright humiliation for the loser. Unfortunately for the crew at Cheers, they would often come off second best, with Sam and his friends finally getting the real Cliff Claven experience. Diane had been set up on a double date with a man who, it turns out, was an unhinged murderer.
Anywhere but Via Milano. That's bad memories for me. I killed a waitress there.
Carla has problems with her family after she refused to continue a family tradition and give her son a name that's been handed down through the generations.
Why, what was your father's first name?
Benito.
And your mother's maiden name?
Mussolini.
Woody had a love rival in the form of Henri, who would constantly tell Woody how he was going to steal Kelly away from him.
How long will it take for me to steal your girlfriend? I give up. Then it won't take long at all.
Norm got a corporate accounting gig at one point, though he found the experience soul-destroying. Later on, when trying to run a painting business, he invented a belligerent business partner in order to motivate his staff.
Hey, any more lip out of you and I'll rip your face off and stick it up your lunch bucket.
Norm used to frequent an establishment called the Hungry Heifer, not because it was good, but because it was insanely cheap. When that restaurant was finally about to be closed, Norm organised a protest to keep it open, which didn't sit well with the owner.
He always feels that he sticks out like a sore thumb and makes a fool out of himself.
Why is that, Woody?
Well, there has been a precedent set.
Cheers had a lot of guest stars. There were quite a few before they were famous types. Harry Anderson from Night Court appeared as con artist Harry the Hat in a few episodes. Leah Remini appeared as one of Carla's daughters, plus a lot of people who were already quite known, such as Emma Thompson. So rather than just list them, let's put as many of them onto the screen at one time as we can.
He did, but he died.
How?
Happy.
but it's always cool seeing Keen Curtis. He's one of those character actors who just pops up in everything and was always good. Dan Hedaya as Nick Tortelli often walked off with every scene he was in, along with his ditzy wife Loretta, played by Jean Kasem, wife of DJ Casey Kasem.
Now get the hell out of here before I call security.
We said earlier how Cheers was influenced by Fawlty Towers, and it turns out the star of that show, John Cleese, was a fan of Cheers and contacted the producers about appearing in the show.
Yes, I have. You two should not only not get married, you should never see each other again.
Cheers is well known for a particular spin-off, but back in 1987 there was another spin-off series called The Tortellis, featuring Dan Hedaya's character Nick Tortelli. It lasted half a season.
How come the cake says Nick and Diane?
You know what a lousy speller I am.
Oh, right.
In 1990, three of Cheers' writing team, David Angel, Peter Casey and David Lee, would put together a sitcom, Wings, which, while it's not a spin-off of Cheers...
Nobody believes in that anymore.
It does take place in the same universe, where several actors from Cheers would play their Cheers characters in appearances in Wings. Of course, as far as I can tell, no characters from Wings ever appeared in Cheers.
Someone had their fist in my mouth. Hey, it was her.
That show ran for 8 seasons. Wings, man. 8 seasons. I mean, Wings is linked to Cheers and Frasier in a few ways, but it's no The Tortellis. But thankfully, this video is all about Cheers, and not Wings.
Will you stop that?
I mean, 8 seasons, shit. Someone had some compromising photos there. After Cheers called time, the same trio behind Wings, Angel, Casey and Lee, put together an actual Cheers spin-off based around Frasier Crane as he moved to Seattle, which would also run for 11 seasons.
What, you must be an idiot savant.
Yeah, but I covered by smiling a lot.
And more recently had a revival series. Both shows are called Frasier. One is far better than the other, but, you know, both are worth watching for fans of Kelsey Grammer and his character.
Checkmate.
Ted Danson would star in movies and programs, and he'd be one of those people who would just pop up in unusual places. He would play the title character of the sitcom Becca, appeared in various CSI series, as well as the critical darling The Good Place, among others. He'd also play a stylized version of himself in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I burned down the bar with a carelessly tossed cigarette.
Kirstie Alley would star in 90s sitcom Veronica's Closet. George Wendt briefly starred in his own sitcom. Woody Harrelson became a major name in movies in the 90s. John Ratzenberger would voice characters in several Pixar movies, with his most famous character being Ham in Toy Story.
2 hours, call the Defense Department, tell them Hitler's alive and living in my apartment building. They know the address.
Cheers was an award magnet, winning several Emmy Awards and others throughout its run. The only problem with being such an award magnet is all those award trophies are also incredible dust magnets.
He's going through a terrible divorce right now. Apparently he got tired of coming home and finding his wife in bed with hives.
Well, it's pretty insensitive of him.
Hives was their butler.
The opening titles of Cheers were meant to depict the bar or bars over the years using vintage drawings and photographs.
I'd say that 4 brains plus whatever Cliffy has are better than 1.
Our last point of order, the causes of death of the people featured in the opening title. Now you'd think we'd just say liver failure, alcohol poisoning or choked on their own vomit a few times and be done with that. Sure, that's probably contributory. The possible truth is even weirder. So, fell into a steel press after a long lunch, shot by a love rival, a game of Twister gone horribly wrong, autoerotic asphyxia, choked on a novelty-sized Toblerone, run over by a horse and carriage driver that hit a pedestrian, passenger of said carriage who was trimming their mustache at the time of the crash.
Oh, shut up.
No, you shut! You shut! Shut!
I did watch Cheers back in the day, but sporadically, on and off up until the final season. I liked it enough at the time. Having watched it again now, I absolutely love it.
Alrighty, thank you. If I could see yours, please.
Cheers is a beloved show, and not because it's some unchallenging lowest common denominator fodder, but because it was funny then, and it's still funny. Parts of it have dated, but not all that badly. It holds up very well because it's insanely funny without suddenly being cruel in a way that is really not welcome.
Oh, come on, Robin's not here, Sam's out of the picture. You had the rest, now try the best.
Cheers was a smartly written show that gave simple characters depth and complexity. Norm didn't want to go home and spend time with Vera, but he loved her. Cliff may not have actually murdered his mother, But you can understand why everybody else thought that was the case. Just don't make eye contact, nod and be on your way. Sam may not have ended up with Diane, but he still had his Corvette and his bar. If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.
Sam Malone's sperm count is well within normal range.
That damn bar.